Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Paul Barber. Our top stories this hour. Israel's military announces a daily pause in Gaza to allow aid deliveries, with members of the war cabinet claiming they were not consulted. Palestinians, meanwhile, gather to mark the annual Muslim Eid festivities in Gaza amid widespread destruction and food shortages. Demonstrations ramp up in France ahead of the country's snap parliamentary election. And China's Premier Li Cheng kicks off his visit to Australia by calling in on a pair of loaned pandas. The Israeli military has announced what it's called a daily tactical pause in southern Gaza to allow deliveries of aid. Military chiefs say the 11-hour halt to allow relief trucks to pass through Gaza's southern border will take place until further notice. The deliveries of food and medical supplies will be coordinated with international organisations working in Gaza. However, the Israel Defence Forces says there will be no let-up in their Rafah offensive, where 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in a blast on Saturday, the deadliest single incident for the IDF since January. And let's cross now live to Tel Aviv and our correspondent, Jonathan Regev. Jonathan, some members of the Israeli War Cabinet claimed that they were not informed about this IDF plan for a daily tactical pause. What more do we know?
A lot of confusion there and some miscommunication between the military and political establishments. The news broke out early in the morning by the Arabic-speaking language department of the IDF spokesperson. And initially it seemed as if there will be a pause of 11 hours in the fighting in the area of Rafah. This is what seemed to be happening. Then very quickly after that, there were reactions from the Prime Minister, from the Defense Minister, saying they're not aware of any of it and certainly did not approve it. And then came the clarification from the IDF spokesperson claiming that there's no let-up in the war, but there is sort of a corridor, a safe corridor from the Kerem Shalom crossing in the southern Gaza Strip and further into Gaza, also adding that this is a corridor that has been discussed with international organizations such as the UN. You would think that if this was discussed with international organizations, then the political establishment would be aware of it, but it's not. So a lot of miscommunication there, and once this war is over, Israel will have to investigate a lot of things in the way it conducted its war. This will be just one of them.
Yes, and Jonathan, there are more details, aren't there, about this attack on the Israeli military convoy in Rafah on Saturday that left 8 Israeli soldiers dead?
Yes, and I think Israelis are learning what the next phase of this war will look like. On the one hand, great military achievements by the IDF, no doubt about that, literally cleaning areas from Hamas militants one after the other. That is correct. On the other hand, there's still enough militants and enough ammunition in Gaza for those militants to carry out a guerrilla warfare, which can inflict plenty of damage. And that was seen on Saturday with that convoy hit, with that vehicle hit, and 8 Israeli soldiers killed. And this is guerrilla warfare by the book. This is what it will look like, and we're not going to see probably a giant face-to-face clashes, but militants rising from the ground, shooting their anti-tank fire on the large forces of the Israeli army, which are very large and very successful on one hand, but sitting ducks on the other. And this is guerrilla warfare, and this is what it will look like. And yes, inflicting damage to the Israeli army, no doubt about it.
Jonathan, thanks so much for that. That's Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. Yemen's decade-long civil war has taken a major toll on its economy and its people's quality of life. As the country marks the Eid festival, some community groups are backing campaigns to boost local businesses and products. Ihab Al-Fandi reports from Sana'a.
Ali Al-Jabali, a father of 3, is touring the different sections of this festival, held for the first time in the capital city of Sana'a to showcase products for Eid. Ali is looking to buy something affordable for himself and his children.
I
came with my children to this market to buy clothes for Eid. I found the prices reasonable and saw beautiful items in the market. Thank God, everything is made in Yemen.
After 9 years of war and blockade, people in Yemen are living in difficult and often tragic conditions. The situation worsened when government salaries stopped after the central bank moved to Aden. Over the years, the challenges have only increased.
The people of Yemen face numerous hardships such as war, a blockade, and the struggle with salaries after the bank was moved to Aden. Despite the blockade and the suffering, there are festivals supporting the economy and families.
People are trying to fight back and are producing local products to help with the economy. We noticed that people are eager to support local products and families who make the items at home. These families have shifted from relying on salaries to becoming self-reliant through production.
The festival is a boost for many families looking for happiness during Eid al-Adha. The festival doesn't only offer clothes, but also nuts, local honey, traditional crafts, and delicious local foods. All these products are made by Yemenis and are priced to suit all budgets. The Eid Festival is a unique local initiative that embodies the spirit of cooperation and solidarity among the Yemenis in the face of war and siege. It aims to support protective families and the national economy, which have both suffered for years. Ihab Al-Fendi, CGTN, Sana'a, Yemen.
Jordan has confirmed the deaths of 14 of its citizens and says 17 others are missing following Hajj rituals in Saudi Arabia. Authorities in Iran say 5 of its citizens have died during the pilgrimage too. A number of people are known to have succumbed to heat stroke in Mecca on Saturday, where temperatures have risen to over 45 degrees Celsius. The Hajj, one of the world's largest religious gatherings, attracted 1.8 million visitors this year. A peace summit for Ukraine has ended in Switzerland with a declaration calling for dialogue to end the war and for Russia to withdraw troops from the country, returning to 1991 borders. More than 90 countries were represented, but several, including India, South Africa and Saudi Arabia, did not sign the declaration. Russia, which was not invited to the talks, had called the peace summit a waste of time. Well, imported gas from Russia reduced in May more than its usual supplier, the United States, for the first time in almost 2 years. It comes despite European Union efforts to not rely on Russian fossil fuels since the start of Moscow's military operations in Ukraine. Experts say the increase in Russian gas supply was mainly driven by an outage at a major US gas facility. New Caledonia has announced it will reopen its international airport and shorten the overnight curfew as the French Pacific territory gradually recovers from last month's unrest. Violent protests broke out in response to controversial voting reforms, which indigenous groups said would weaken their influence. French President Emmanuel Macron has suspended the reforms as the country prepares for a snap general election. Well, back in Gaza, Palestinians are marking the annual Eid celebrations amid widespread food shortages, amid the ongoing threat of Israeli bombardment. CGTN's Akram Al-Satri is in Khan Yunis.
Well, Gaza has been living the devastation, the death and the displacement. Around 1.9 to 2 million Gazans have already been living in tents. To my left-hand side, you will see many Gazans who are still staying in those tents. People made some makeshift cafes where people are trying to catch whatever internet connection they have for the sake of communicating with their families in other parts of Gaza and outside of Gaza as well. People who are, as part of their faith, asked to sacrifice one goat or ox or camel in Gaza and cannot now do that because of the extremely high prices of the remaining cattle in the Gaza Strip. For you to get one cow now, you need to get $10,000 paid for you to get that cow. For you to get a goat, or a sheep, you have to pay $2,000. And the people who are celebrating the Eid are living in this total destruction that has been engulfing their life for the last 8 months. So in Gaza, the Eid is missing. The extremely important pillars of that Eid are also missing. People cannot sacrifice, people cannot perform the very essential ritual of their religion. However, they're still willing to celebrate the Eid. They are visiting each other. They're going to the cemetery for the sake of just visiting the graves of their dears who were killed in Gaza. And they're trying to retrieve even some little normalcy to their ever abnormal life because of the ongoing bombardment and war in Gaza.
And Akram, the chief of Hamas, has been defending the group's response to the latest American-backed ceasefire proposal. What details can you give us about that?
Well, Haniya has been commenting on the fact that Hamas was accused of not accepting the deal. He said that Hamas is serious and flexible as well. He said they have been negotiating and discussing, consulting with the different Palestinian factions, and that they're willing to see a realization of the swap deal and of the full lift of the blockade that has been imposed on Gaza, as well as an end of the war in Gaza. They wanted to see a full reconstruction of Gaza, unhindered entrance of the humanitarian aid to Gaza, and he said that those principles are in line and very consistent with the principles laid out by Mr. Biden and the American administration. He also concluded that they are consistent with the UN Security Council resolution that was made and that was calling upon all parties to reach some agreements that will eventually end in the end of the war. So he is defending Hamas' position, and he is expressing willingness to reach a comprehensive deal based on the principles that were affirmed by Biden, by the UN Security Council, and that were proposed by Hamas as well. The only difference is the timing of doing the different things and the mechanism of enhancing and consolidating the overall plan that was suggested. Israel wants to do things before other things, while Hamas wants the step-by-step plan to start that would eventually, in the first stage, lead to full stoppage of the war, which is not accepted by Israel.
That was Akram al-Sashri reporting from Khan Yunis. Campaigning has been ramping up across France ahead of the country's snap election, due to be held in 3 weeks' time. Saturday saw demonstrators take to the streets to protest against the far-right party, the National Rally, which recently saw its best ever results in European parliamentary elections. Police say 250,000 people took part in 150 separate marches across France. Meanwhile, the country's socialist former president, François Hollande, has announced that he will run for parliament again. Jacques Roland is a senior research fellow at the Global Policy Institute. Earlier, I asked him if former President Hollande's candidacy could impact the election in France.
I don't think it will do at all. What I think that it came as a surprise that François Hollande is ready to stand with the new popular front created between the extremist LFI and the more moderate members of the Socialist Party. It came as a big surprise, but it shows exactly that this alliance of the left is purely for electoral purposes and not, they don't agree on very much between the far left of Mélenchon and the Social Democrats, which governed with François Hollande. Let's not forget also that François Hollande is really hated by the far left and by the LFI, and also is not very liked by his own party members, who think that his policy when he was president was not left-wing enough, and therefore he is not going to change things. But it shows that it is for them the goal is not to agree on a program. The goal is to be able to be present in the second round of the election. If the parties had gone single-handedly, very few of them would have been present in the second round. Let's not forget that this election is very different from the European election. It's a two-round election with 577 seats, all with a different political configuration. So that's why it's very hard today to see what the outcome is. But one thing is sure: if the left had been divided, it would probably have led to a draw in the second round between the National Rally, which is well ahead, in opinion polls, and probably the government or the government-friendly parties.
I see, yes. Well, let's speak a little bit more about the National Rally. And despite the recent protests, why do recent polls continue to show the far right maintaining a lead?
But the far right maintains the lead in the polls. Yes, they were on an upward trend. They are a catch-all party which has capitalized on all the frustration, dissatisfactions in the people. They've capitalized on the cost of living measures, like everywhere else in Europe. They also share the concern of many French people about immigration and law and order. And let's not forget, you also have new television channels now, which daily, hourly, always talk about the insecurity and the violence. There's one channel called CNews that has helped, and also the fact that Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella appear as far more palatable than her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. And that's why we saw that the demonstration yesterday gathered far less people than in 2002, when the presence of Le Pen in the second round of the election, of the presidential election, came as a total shock. Here in France, now people are accustomed. You can say that the National Rally is no longer the National Front in a way, and that's why it frightens the people less, and they might think that this government, they say, we've tried everything else, why, except the National Front, why not try them? Why not give them a chance?
And you're watching CGTN. Still ahead. China's Premier Li Qiang promises more pandas and a return to stability as he kicks off his tour of Australia. Welcome back. These are the headlines. Israel's military announces a daily pause in Gaza operations to allow in aid deliveries, with members of the war cabinet claiming they were not consulted. Palestinians gather to mark the annual Muslim Eid festivities in Gaza amid widespread destruction and food shortages. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has completed the first stop of his tour of Australia. The visit is being seen as evidence of warming relations between the two countries. CGTN's Greg Navarro reports from one of the first stops, Adelaide Zoo.
This is the first stop in Chinese Premier Li Qiang's visit to Australia, the Adelaide Zoo, where the Premier made an announcement earlier on the future of a pair of giant pandas on loan from China. Their lease is set to expire later this year. The Premier announcing the pair, which have failed to breed during their 15 years here at the zoo, will be replaced by two new giant pandas.
What I want to tell everyone here is that China will provide, as soon as possible, another new pair of similarly beautiful, lovely, cute, and younger pandas to the Adelaide Zoo.
Can I say how grateful we are for your generous offer? It is one that the South Australian people will very much embrace.
The pandas have proven to be a very popular draw at the zoo.
Absolutely, yeah, we love seeing the pandas, don't we, girls? They're pretty exciting to see.
I would think of visiting, and then when we learn that pandas here, so that actually even more, entice us to come here and visit.
Those pandas have become a symbol here of the improving relations between the two countries. Now, the Premier is also scheduled while he's here in Adelaide to have lunch with Australia's trade and foreign ministers and tour a winery. That's meant to highlight the fact that China recently dropped the tariffs it had placed on Australian wine exports. Other events scheduled during his visit include a meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Canberra. He'll finish up his trip here in Australia in Perth on Tuesday, where he'll meet with business leaders as well as tour a mining and lithium processing facility. Greg Navarro, CGTN, Adelaide.
There are hopes that Premier Li Qiang's visit could help both Chinese and Australian companies pursue trade and investment opportunities. Vaughan Barber, chair of the China-Australia Chamber of Commerce, sat down with our correspondent Zheng Chunying to discuss what that could mean.
Premier Li Qiang's visit to Australia is a significant step in stabilising and strengthening the bilateral relationship. As you said, the first senior visit in 7 years. We're hopeful will deliver a number of positive outcomes. For a start, strengthening mutual trust and understanding is important for trade and economic cooperation. It also provides an opportunity to resolve outstanding trade issues, which is necessary for having a stable and predictable trade relationship.
Well, in fact, we have already witnessed many clear signs of warming ties between the two countries. For example, China lifted the import tariff of nearly 220% on Australian wines early this year. So do you expect there to be a spike in trade for Australian wineries?
Absolutely. The lifting of the tariffs on Australian wines is a game changer. Australian wine is well and truly back. In the first month after the lifting of the tariffs in April, sales of Australian wine in that month were more than the combined amount in the previous 3 years. We saw strong interest from Chinese buyers at the recent Vin Expo in Hong Kong. In my opinion, without these tariffs, we will see a strong rebound in Australian wine in China. The wineries are happy, excited about that, and ready to meet that demand.
And what do you think makes Chinese markets so attractive to Australian businesses?
I think fundamentally it's about the high degree of complementarity between China and Australia, whether it's the size of the market, the consumer preferences for quality, safety and sustainability, or the economic growth and urbanisation driving demand for minerals and energy exports from Australia.
Sports now, and there's been a security scare ahead of the Euro 2024 match in Germany, with police shooting a man wielding an axe. The incident happened in Hamburg ahead of Poland's match against the Netherlands. Police said a man threatened officers with a pickaxe and an incendiary device before he was shot. The man was taken to hospital with severe injuries. Meanwhile, there is heightened security in the German city of Gelsenkirchen ahead of a match between England and Serbia that has been designated high risk. There are fears that hundreds of right-wing Serbian fans, known as ultras, could clash with their English rivals, with some skirmishes already reported. The Three Lions head to their first match as one of the favourites to win the tournament. Motorsport has traditionally been a man's world, but that is changing. Since last year, the F1 Academy has been encouraging young female drivers to train and compete at a professional level. Kitty Logan reports now from the Rodin Motorsport team in Surrey.
The road to success in motorsport can be a long haul, especially for women. They're often forced to take a back seat with fewer chances to race. Jess took up go-karting when she was just 4 years old. Now aged 19, she's moving up a gear, training at the F1 Academy here at Rodin Motorsport.
Being like wheel to wheel on the track, like racing, is exciting and it gives you adrenaline rush, and it's really cool to be side by side on tracks that racing alongside F1.
The F1 Academy is an all-female series launched in 2023 to help create equal opportunities for women, giving junior female drivers more time on the track, with 7 races this year across 3 continents.
I think F1 Academy are doing a really good job of making it more opening doors for women coming into motorsport, from karting, young girls in karting, and even like mechanics and engineers and stuff. There's more opportunities for them now too, so I think it's good that there's definitely been a change, and hopefully in years to come there'll be a lot more women in the sport.
Rodin is one of 5 teams in the F1 Academy. It already has a long history of all-round motor racing success, with over 450 wins. The young women who've recently joined the team hope to add to this tally. There are 15 full-time female drivers in the F1 Academy. 3 are based here at Rodin Motorsport. The aim is to offer practical and financial backing to advance their careers. Funding women to drive professionally is already a leap forward. Now those female drivers want to make it all the way to the top.
My dream is to one day hopefully be a Formula 1 world champion, but if not, just be a professional racing driver, you know, keep racing year on year. I've run out of funding a time or 2, so every year I'm back in a car it's a good year.
Abby made history as the first woman to beat male rivals in a mixed F4 race. And she's one of the most successful Academy drivers too, winning 3 out of 4 recent races.
It was just a great opportunity, the seat time that F1 Academy are providing, as well as, you know, the tracks that we're going to this year, being on the main stage following Formula 1, it was a no-brainer to go there.
The F1 Academy formed as the all-women's W Series folded in 2022. Ensuring women still have the chance to compete. Currently, just 2 points off the top of the team leaderboard, Rodin is busy fine-tuning tactics and training, hoping these young women can seize the team title in Abu Dhabi in December. Kitty Logan, CGTN, Surrey.
And a final look at the headlines. Israel's military announces a daily pause in Gaza operations to allow in aid deliveries, with members of the war cabinet claiming they were not consulted. Palestinians gather to mark the annual Muslim Eid festivities in Gaza amid widespread destruction and food shortages. And that is The World Today. Thanks for watching. There's more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's Razor. For now, from all the team in London, goodbye.